I can see Gane eye-poking Pereira and Pereira doing, you know, the Jamal Hill thing where he calls off the ref and then sleeps Ciryl Gane on the White House card.
Alex Pereira's opportunity to become a 3-time world champ against Ciryl Gane.
Ciryl Gane, people are talking about this. The infinite title shot glitch. He's back again.
I don't know. Hey, Ciryl Gane looked good in that fight against Tom. Ciryl's going to be hard to knock out in the first round because he does stick and move. He's not going to sit there and trade with Pereira. He's going to jab. He's going to move. He bounces around, like you said, a light guy. It's going to be interesting.
What are your thoughts in general of Alex Pereira talking about heavyweight? I know he spoke about John Jones specifically, but maybe he could be looking at this fight on Saturday. So what do you think of him just wanting to go up to heavyweight?
Oh yeah, Alex Pereira. Yes, of course. This is a beautiful idea. Alex Pereira now is really one king of fights. You have a beautiful story, and you build up, and so he can do it. He can do it, and he stay really dangerous. He can do it. He can do it. And yeah, really excited. Like I remember exactly the same situation with John Jones. We're talking about him to jump in the heavyweight division. We are also excited for Alex Pereira.
Heavyweights, but Ciryl Gane in his DNA is a gigantic, bona fide, legit heavyweight that just so happens to be very, very light on the feet, incredibly fast, can move around, you know, all over the place, shaking and baking, jigging and jiving, moving and grooving, whatever else you want to say, right? Yeah. I think that's a big advantage in this fight here.
Yeah, that's the thing. He kicks so well too. He's not just a guy that's going to be some lumbering heavyweight. I think there's a lot of heavyweights on the roster that Pereira would hands down easily just go out there and KO to death. No problem. This one is a challenge. And I think that's what entices him, whether it was going to be Jones or whether it's going to be Ciryl Gane. You're going for that third belt. If he gets it, you are a legit. And where do we go from here? If he wins that friggin' belt.
Are you excited for the White House card? That looks really good.
It sounds crazy. I know it's going to be very high security and high stress and weird to have a fight at the White House in the middle of a war. But I would hope the war will be sorted out by June, but having this very high profile event where everybody's in one place at one time right there.
I hadn't thought of that at all.
How could you not think of that?
Well, because I'm not going to be there. You're the one that has to think of it.
I agree. I think it's going to be hard for him early on. I think he's going to lose like the first round, maybe the second, and then settle in. But I'm excited, man. It's going to be a good fight.
Dude, and those two fights, 5-round fights, and people are just complaining so heavy about this White House card.
Yeah. And so Alex Pereira, not ever having to worry about that weight cut again, which has burdened him his entire life through his kickboxing career, through his time at 185, which he finally said, I'm not doing it anymore. His time at 205, it's not the same spot. Alex can still make 205. I'm just sharing, like, this is a very different Alex Pereira. I have watched this guy train a lot. He is disciplined. He works hard. He does not miss practice. He's the first guy there. He's the last one to leave. Like one of these things, the things that you would expect from a champion, but he's always had to fight 2 battles. He's had to get ready to fight the guy that's going to be standing across from him, and he's got to fight the scale. He doesn't have to fight the scale anymore. I not only predict for you that we're going to see a successful, awesome Alex Pereira, I submit for you, you're going to see the best version of Alex Pereira, and I think that's...
The fight between Ciryl Gane and Alex Pereira is now being talked about everywhere, and people are sharply divided on how it could play out. A lot of fans believe Pereira's pressure and knockout power will be too much, and they picture him walking Gane down until he finds the shot that changes everything. Other people see it very differently. They believe Gane's footwork, speed, and ability to stay calm under pressure could turn this into a frustrating night for Pereira. That is the big reason this matchup has pulled so much attention. It does not come with an easy answer, and that uncertainty is exactly what makes it so interesting. What makes this fight stand out is how different the two men are in the cage. Pereira brings the threat that one clean strike can end the whole thing at any moment. Gane brings movement, eye control, and the kind of range management that can make dangerous punchers look hesitant. One side has the danger of sudden violence. The other has the tools to stretch the fight out and make it complicated. That is why so many people keep going back and forth on it. This is not one of those matchups where everybody sees the same result. There is also something exciting about the fact that both arguments make sense. If you back Pereira, you can point to the power, the confidence, and the way he has changed fights with just a single opening. If you back Gane, you can point to his size, his comfort at heavyweight, and the way he moves unlike most men in that division. So when people start debating Pereira versus Gane, they are not just guessing for the sake of it. They are looking at two very real paths, and both of them feel possible. That is why the discussion around this fight has become so strong.
I don't think he gets past Ciryl Gane. I think that weight is real. Could he 100%? In particular, in that division, but nobody has really finished Ciryl Gane, and his movements is very problematic. Pereira also does get hit tomorrow. Now, can you take a heavyweight's punch? Now you're talking about Francis Ngannou power? A real big heavyweight?
You are right, Henry. Ciryl Gane is no slouch. When he was fighting Tom Aspinall, we saw how that fight was starting to look. But listen, I think this is a fantastic fight. I'm not counting anyone out here. I'm not counting Alex Pereira out here because Alex Pereira does have the power to really change things. We felt this way when Alex Pereira said he was wanting to go to light heavyweight. Now he dominated that weight.
Michael Bisping's view on this matchup is pretty direct. He believes the fight with Ciryl Gane is actually more exciting than the Jon Jones matchup that many people had been calling for. That does not mean he thinks a Pereira versus Jones fight would be small or unimportant. His point is that the type of fight matters just as much as the names involved, and in his mind, Jones would probably turn that contest into a grappling heavy battle. Once that happens, the whole feel of the matchup changes. Bisping keeps coming back to the same thought. Against someone like Jon Jones, Pereira would likely spend large stretches dealing with wrestling, defending takedowns, and trying not to get control. And that would take away the part of the fight people really want to see, which is Pereira striking freely and hunting for big shots. The more the fight moves into clinches, trips, ground control, and slow pressure, the less room Pereira has to do what makes him dangerous. Bisping sees that as a major reason the Jones fight, while huge on paper, may not actually be the more entertaining one once the cage door closes. That is why the Gane matchup stands out to him. Bisping believes this fight is much more likely to stay upright, and that alone changes the entire picture. If Pereira gets a fight where he can work mostly on the feet, then his opportunities instantly go up. He can pressure, set traps, and look for the kind of clean connection that has changed so many of his fights before. In Bisping's eyes, Gane gives Pereira a more open striking battle, and that makes the fight more intriguing from start to finish. He is not saying Gane is an easier opponent. That is not the point at all. What Bisping is really saying is that this matchup gives fans a better chance of seeing the most dangerous version of Pereira. With Jones, the question becomes whether Pereira can stay upright long enough. With Gane, the question becomes whether Pereira can solve a smart mobile heavyweight in striking exchanges. That is a very different challenge, and for Bisping, it is the one that feels fresher, more competitive, and more exciting to watch.
Ciryl Gane, Alex Pereira, interim heavyweight title. Right? I thought it was going to be Jones and Ciryl. It's not. Okay. Yeah. I still think it's a tremendous fight. I think in some ways it's a better fight. We said this on the post-fight show. I said it on the YouTube video and people were like, oh yeah, you would say that, company man. No, listen, Jones, it would be a spectacle and it would be great to see Pereira versus Jones. Of course it would. But in terms of, you all just shit and everyone's been shitting on Charles Oliveira taking down Max Holloway. Do you not think Jon Jones would take down Alex Pereira? Of course, that would be the strategy. I'm not saying Pereira can't stop a takedown, but that's what he's going to try and do because on the feet, Pereira could very well knock him out. Well, Ciryl Gane and Alex Pereira, they're going to put on one hell of a display.
Bisping also spends time talking about the physical side of this matchup, especially the size difference and how natural Gane looks at heavyweight. He does not dismiss Pereira's power for a second, and in fact, he clearly believes Pereira carries the kind of power that can hurt anybody, even in a heavier division. Still, he thinks people need to slow down a bit before assuming that power alone settles everything. Moving up in weight is not just about showing up bigger on fight night. It changes timing, speed, balance, and the kind of impact you feel coming back at you. That is where Gane becomes a real problem. Bisping points out that Gane is not simply a heavyweight because of the number on the scale. He is a true heavyweight in the way he moves, the way he carries his size, and the way he fights without looking stiff or overloaded. Plenty of big men in that division plant their feet and rely on brute force, but Gane does not fight like that. He glides, resets, circles, and stays loose. For someone coming up from a lower weight class, that creates a difficult puzzle. Bisping's argument gets stronger when he talks about comfort. Pereira moving up may sound exciting and even logical because of his frame and his power, but Gane has already lived at heavyweight. He has spent his career dealing with bigger bodies, harder shots, and the rhythm that comes with that division. Pereira may be adding weight, but Gane does not need to adjust to any of it. He is already where he belongs. That matters more than people think, because one fighter is adapting while the other is operating in familiar territory. There is also the issue of speed. When a fighter moves up, fans often assume extra size makes him more dangerous, but that added mass can come with a cost. Bisping seems to believe Pereira could lose a little sharpness if he adds too much. Even a small drop in quickness quickness matters when the man across from you is already faster than most heavyweights. Gane is not just large, he is light on his feet, and that combination is unusual. So Bisping sees the edge not only in Gane's natural size, but in how well he moves with it. In the end, his point is pretty clear. Pereira's power keeps him dangerous at all times, and no one is pretending otherwise. But danger does not automatically equal control, and against Gane, control could be the deciding factor. If Pereira cannot match the pace, range, and movement of a natural heavyweight who is already comfortable in those exchanges, then the fight becomes much harder than it might look on paper. That is the side of the matchup Bisping does not want people to ignore.
Great point. You know, we have weight classes for a reason. There's also a reason why no one's become a 3-weight division champion.
Yeah, it's
he
so
could
hard.
make 185 by almost killing himself. Now he's going up to heavy where it's not, I mean, naturally he walks around as a heavyweight, but he's not naturally a heavyweight fighter. So what will happen? He'll be heavier, which will slow you down a bit. He will have, I think, extra power. I still think he can take the shots. I think he's still got the power to knock out heavyweights. But Ciryl Gane, in his DNA, is a gigantic, bona fide, legit heavyweight that just so happens to be very, very light on the feet, incredibly fast, can move around, you know, all over the place, shaking and baking, jigging and jiving, moving and grooving, whatever else you want to say, right? I think that's a big advantage in this fight.
Paul Felder also sees this as a more competitive fight than some people first assumed, but the way he explains it is slightly different. His focus is less on the headline and more on how each minute of the fight is likely to unfold. Felder looks at the matchup through the lens of opportunity. He thinks Pereira's biggest problem against a fighter like Jon Jones would be the amount of time spent dealing with things that stop him from fighting his fight. That includes takedown defense, clinch work, and long stretches where he would be reacting instead of attacking. In that kind of fight, Pereira would not be free to work. He would be worried about level changes, forced to stay careful, and possibly trapped underneath or pushed against the fence. Felder believes that kind of pressure would strip away a lot of what makes Pereira so dangerous. A striker is always most threatening when he can settle into rhythm, read reactions, and set up power shots. Against a heavy grappling threat, those chances become smaller, and the fight starts getting shaped by survival rather than offense. That is why Felder sees the Gane matchup as different from the start. Against Gane, a huge part of that wrestling layer disappears, and with it comes more freedom for Pereira. The fight becomes a striking battle for most of the night, or at least that is how Felder reads it. Once you remove the constant threat of takedowns, Pereira has more room to let his hands go, more time to study openings, and more chances to land the kind of shots that can change a fight in seconds. Felder's point is not that striking against Gane will be easy. Far from it. What he is saying is that the challenge becomes much clearer. Instead of dealing with striking, wrestling, control, and positional danger all at once, Pereira can focus much more on the stand-up side of the fight. That matters because clarity can be a major advantage. Fighters perform differently when they know where the danger is coming from, and Felder seems to think Pereira will benefit from having a more straightforward problem in front of him. He also seems to appreciate how that affects the viewing experience. A striking heavy fight between Pereira and Gane has a very different energy from a fight where Pereira is repeatedly dragged into grappling exchange. One version gives fans tension every second on the feet. The other could become a test of whether Pereira can survive and escape. Felder clearly feels the Gane matchup gives the fight more action, more uncertainty in striking space, and more real chances for Pereira to be Pereira.
Yeah, no, I think you're right with that it's definitely going to be a much more competitive, much more exciting affair. Whereas even if Pereira had success against Jon Jones, you're right. A lot of that time would be spent at some point defending some sort of takedown or not defending the takedowns and getting taken down, waiting for his opportunity in the next round to be able to strike. This is going to be a big boys kickboxing in there. We saw how good Ciryl Gane looked when he was fighting Tom Aspinall before the eye pokes. He was landing good shots. He's athletic. He can move. These are two heavyweights that can move and can strike. It's going to be a banging ass.
When Felder talks about the odds and the matchup itself, he keeps his feet on the ground. He does not write Pereira off, and he does not act like the result is obvious either. What he does stress is how serious the jump from middleweight to heavyweight really is. People talk about moving up in weight all the time, but not every move is the same. Going from one division to the next is one thing. Reaching heavyweight and trying to deal with true heavyweight is something else entirely. That is the heart of Felder's warning. Heavyweights do not just hit hard once in a while. They hit hard every fight, every round, every exchange. The size, the force, and the raw impact are part of the division from the opening bell. Pereira may bring real knockout power with him, and nobody doubts that. But Gane has been living in that environment for a long time. He is used to the physical reality of heavyweight. He understands the pace, the danger, and the type of shots that come from men in that class. Felder seems to be saying that experience matters just as much as talent here. Pereira might carry his power upward, but Gane does not need to wonder what heavyweight feels like. He already knows. He has already built his game around it. He has already learned how to move, react, and stay composed in that division. That kind of familiarity can become a big edge when the pressure rises and both fighters have to make fast decisions. There is also a difference between being dangerous and being proven at a certain weight. Pereira absolutely has the kind of power that makes everybody watch closely, yet Felder is careful not to let that turn into blind confidence. He recognizes the excitement around Pereira moving up, but he also recognizes that heavyweight is not a place where hype protects you. If you are slower than expected, if you cannot take the shots as well as people assumed, or if you cannot match the natural size across from you, those problems show up very quickly. So Felder's overall point stays balanced. Pereira should be respected because his power is real and his finishing ability is obvious. At the same time, Gane should be respected because he has already been dealing with full heavyweight and everything that comes with them. In Felder's eyes, that is what makes this matchup feel so real. It is not just about one man moving up and trying something bold. It is about whether that power can still be the deciding factor when the other fighter already belongs in that world.
This one's surprising. Ciryl Gane, minus 160. It's only a slight underdog, favorite, but still a favorite. Alex Pereira, plus 140. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's kind of accurate. And I think that's a lot of it is we're basing the fact that he's moving up to heavyweight, Pereira. He really started off as a middleweight. Now, granted, he's a much bigger man now, and I don't think there's any world in which he could go back down to 185 pounds. But still, you're going from, I was able to make middleweight to now I'm fighting at heavyweight where these men are huge. And again, Ciryl Gane is used to the threat of nasty power coming his way in every...
This is a very compelling style matchup, and that is why it keeps drawing so much attention. Alex Pereira is once again moving up, and the question hanging over the fight is simple. Can his knockout power still do the same damage against full-size heavyweight? That is the challenge in front of him, and it is a serious one. He is not stepping in with a slow, predictable opponent. He is facing Ciryl Gane, a fighter who forces people to think, adjust, and shake. Gane is not the standard version of a heavyweight that many fans picture in their head. He does not just stand in front of people and trade huge shots until one man falls. He works behind movement, uses his jab well, stays patient, and understands how to manage distance. That makes him a difficult target for anybody, especially for a fighter who wants clean, damaging entry. Gane can drag the fight into a more technical space, and that is where things become very interesting. That contrast is what makes the results so hard to call. Pereira is dangerous in a way that always keeps the fight close to disaster for the man across from him. One clean opening, one slight mistake, one moment of bad positioning, and the whole contest can change. He does not need a long stretch of dominance to win. He just needs the right shot at the right time. Against a lot of opponents, that alone is enough to tilt the fight in his favor. Still, Gane has tools that can keep those moments from showing up so easily. If he keeps the range where he wants it, touches Pereira with the jab, stays disciplined with his footwork, and refuses to get trapped in straight exchanges, he could stretch this into a long night. The longer the fight stays technical, the more it starts leaning into Gane's style. He does not have to rush. He does not have to force wild exchanges. His path is based on patience, control, and making Pereira work for every clean look. That is why this fight feels so evenly debated. Pereira has the kind of power that can erase every good decision his opponent made before it. Gane has the kind of movement and composure that can stop those moments from ever arriving. One fighter offers sudden danger, the other offers sustained control. When those two things collide, a prediction gets difficult very quickly, and that is exactly what makes this matchup such a strong talking point. If Pereira finds the opening and lands clean, the fight may not last long at all. If Gane stays smart, manages distance, and keeps the action where he is most comfortable, the bout could turn into a drawn-out technical battle that tests Pereira in ways he has not had to deal with before. Both outcomes feel believable, and that is why so many people remain split. This is not a simple power versus power fight. It is a clash between finishing threat and movement, between division-hopping ambition and natural heavyweight comfort, and that is what gives the matchup its real edge.